I hate horror. Okay, that's not entirely true. Historically, I've always been the kind of person that gets way too immersed into whatever media I happen to be consuming. When I explore the ruins of Hyrule, I am Link. When I find true love and fight for my ideals, I am a Disney princess. When I'm stuck in a security office for 6 hours a night, 5 nights a week, you damn well bet I'm Michael fucking Schmidt. You can say my disbelief's very easily suspended. It takes very little to immerse me into your world. And for that reason, I avoided horror media like the plague. I only really started dabbling in it with the rise of, you guessed it,
Hello everybody, my name is Markiplier and welcome to
Five Nights at Freddy's. As I grew up, I learned to be able to control my level of immersion, so I was able to branch out and try more horror media, though admittedly, I still do avoid it like the plague. Sorry, I'm such a pussy, alright? I scare easily, and wildly realistic gore makes me uncomfortable. Despite my fears, I eventually learned to love more horror media. More on the side of psychological as opposed to slasher. One of my top games of 2025 was Mouthwashing, a psychological horror. So when Markiplier announced that he was making a horror film based off of a horror game, I knew I had to lock the fuck in. Admittedly, I didn't prepare for watching the film at all. In that I mean, I didn't play the game, and I didn't look up any of the lore. I only watched both trailers that Mark released once before going in. I wanted to go in fully blind, and also, I was afraid of the game, so I didn't play it. I decided maybe I would play it myself after watching the film, or I would watch Mark's playthrough of it. But again, I wanted just to go in super blind and enjoy the film on its own merits. The most preparation I got was a very quick, bare bones lore dump from my friend in the car on the way to the theater. I learned that there was a blood ocean and that the main character was a criminal. Awesome. I get to the theater and I have a confession to make. Me, my friend, and my younger sister get there like 10 to 15 minutes late. So we missed the opening of the film. I don't know what I missed. I got there and Simon was already like down in the sub taking a picture, and I think when we entered the theater he was being lifted up for the first time to be like, hey, I saw a fucking skeleton down there. That's about where I dropped in, so I don't know what we missed. I don't know if I missed lore bits, character bits. I hope I didn't, because then some of my review and some of my gripes might sound really stupid, but we'll see. When it eventually comes out physically and streaming, I'm gonna watch it again. Spoiler alert, I really like the movie, so I do want to watch it again. Anyways, went in, watched the movie, here are all my thoughts. Let me start by recognizing my bias. I've been a fan of Markiplier as a YouTuber for over 11 years. If it wasn't obvious from the intro, my first introduction to him was through FNAF, and since I've watched him through Poppy Playtime, Baldi's Basics, Uno, his Darkiplier phase, A Date with Markiplier, A Heist with Markiplier, Unis Honest. The only things I've regretfully been putting off are In Space with Markiplier. I've started it. I haven't finished a quote-unquote run. And I just sleep because I don't have Amazon Prime and I'm poor. Point is, I am taking a moment to recognize that I've been a fan long before his filmmaking days, and that is likely informing a lot of my opinions. On the other hand, I studied animation in college, and it's not exactly filmmaking. I know. I did study script writing, shot composition, pacing, like general storytelling elements, the usual suspects when studying a visual media. So all that to say, I like to think I'm able to have a critical eye regarding the film, despite my bias and being a fan of Markiplier. Okay, Iron Lung. Jumping straight into the blood ocean, I fucking loved it. Good things first. I thought the dialogue was pretty good. Some of the harsher reviews I've seen of this film were dragging the dialogue. God forbid it's one man in one setting most of the film. Writing realistic dialogue when only one person is present in the scene is hard. I think normal people don't tend to talk to themselves, so it is a little bit jarring. But I thought it was pretty good, despite the fact that Mark was alone in a lot of the scenes. Speaking of Mark being alone in a lot of the scenes, I thought his performance was fucking great. Again, with my bias, I have been watching Mark on screen for a long time, but as an actor, I thought Mark was great. My sister thought his performance was good, and my friend thought his performance was quote-unquote standard level, and I imagine he's comparing it to like other Hollywood level acting. So if that says anything, the set was fucking beautiful. I saw behind the scenes of the sub mounted onto the device that flung around. I think it's called a Macmo. It looked fucking insane. It was awesome. The setting really sold me on it. Like the costuming, the props, the design, it was all really, really strong. I really, really loved it. In terms of audio design, I can't really speak much on it. It is my weak point in art and filmmaking, but for the soundtrack, I fucking adore that like looming, dreadful sound that Andrew Hulshult captured. It was really good. It sounds like Simon's guilt looming behind him, like ever present. It was haunting. I fucking love it. The practical effects go fucking hard. I can't imagine what filming some of the shots where Mark is basically submerged in blood was like. Like, I think they used like, I don't remember how many gallons, like 80, I might just be pulling a number up my ass, like 80,000? Like, a lot. It must have been insane. Like, Jesus Christ. I thought the camera work was really clever. To spend 2 full hours in one location and not let it get boring or stale is truly a feat. I will point out, this isn't a bad thing, just something I noticed. There was one shot with the computer in the back. Mark was standing like really close to it after hallucinating that someone was around the corner, and the camera angle, it literally looked like FNAF 1's camera 2B, where Bonnie is standing and staring at the camera. Like, when we're watching it, my sister leaned over and went, FNAF camera angle, and I couldn't unsee it for the rest of the film. He was really creative with his camera angles. I really loved it. And alongside that, to prevent the location from getting stale, the location does change. It does evolve, like as the Iron Lung comes alive, almost like as it gets like more covered in like that fleshy stuff and becomes bloodier. The set does evolve along with like the character arcs and with the film going on. I thought it was good. It was really good. I love the fact that the story is a slow burn. I know not everyone loved that. This is where we start transitioning to some of my issues with the film. I will say the beginning of it felt really slow. I personally don't think that this is a bad thing. And once the Iron Lung like crashes, once it like gets stranded deep in the blood ocean, the pacing does like pick up and it does feel a bit better to watch. As for the story itself, I liked the fact that we were being like drip fed information. Again, I missed the first like 10-15 minutes of the movie, so I may have been missing some stuff and I was learning it for the first time further into the film, whereas the rest of the fucking theater probably already knew some stuff. I don't know. I liked that drip feed of information, and I like media with open-ended endings or ambiguous endings. And I do understand that some people don't. That's why Iron Lung didn't hit with everybody. But I thought Iron Lung's story was perfectly ambiguous. Maybe erring on the side of too ambiguous, hence some of the harsher critiques I've been hearing about the film. For me, to make it a little bit clearer, I would have liked for Simon's flashbacks or hallucinations of his past to be a little bit clearer, a little bit more fleshed out, if you know what I mean. I think to have like good ambiguity of, especially later in the film, when Mark is hallucinating or Simon is hallucinating, and you kind of fall into this, is anything that's happening real kind of mindset. Like you're right there with Simon of, am I going fucking insane? Or is this actually happening? Is the ocean alive? But yeah, I liked that there wasn't any clear answer. But I think to have good ambiguity, you have to contrast it with some moments of clarity. And like the second half of the film was super, like, just entirely ambiguous. I was truly starting to be like, is this even real? Or is he just losing his fucking mind? I wanted Simon's backstory to be a little bit more fleshed out. That's me personally. I really, really like media that is very character driven, and I would have loved to know more about Simon. I was super curious about Simon's character, and I'm sad that we didn't get to learn more about him. It wasn't necessary to the story that Mark was trying to tell in Iron Lung, so we didn't need it. I wanted more of him. Other than those points, I did enjoy it, despite my complaints. The story, the theme, and the ending. The payoff, or perhaps the lack thereof, felt satisfying. In terms of my visual gripes, I've heard complaints, this isn't me, but I've heard complaints about the copious amounts of shots of the walls of the submarine, like watching blood roll down, condensation, and all that. I can agree, there were a lot. Personally, I don't think it was overdone. You know what I mean? Like, I can see why people are complaining, but I think those shots were necessary. But again, I adore the set. I love looking at the set. I could look at it all fucking day, so the shots didn't bother me. In terms of me thinking it was necessary, I think it contributes to the atmosphere and the pacing. Like, it's super slow in the beginning, and I think that is by design, despite everyone complaining about it, because once it picks up, it really picks up, and there's a lot less of the kind of slow shots looking at the walls. When there are shots looking at the walls in the latter half of the film, it's to watch like blood like bursting through the walls, filling up the depth gauge and shit like that, or dripping out of the, like, pouring out of the speaker, I mean, even. To contrast with the slower shots of blood dripping out of the speaker, or not even coming out of the speaker, just the speaker being there, or the depth gauge, we're just looking at it in the shot. I think it contributes to the film's pacing. And also it mirrors Simon's character arc. The submarine slowly fills up with blood. Like, it doesn't flood all at once. It comes in slowly, much how, like, Simon's guilt slowly catches up to him throughout the film. And then once everything bursts open, everything comes to light, that's when all of the slower shots become faster shots for the pacing. You know what I mean? You know what I'm trying to say? Fuck, I can't like verbalize it. For my final gripes, there were some shots that were so fucking dark. I'm so sorry. Like, I couldn't see anything in some of those shots. Like, particularly with when Simon was down in the crawl space, it was so fucking dark. I couldn't tell anything that was happening, and like, I was staring at the screen and it was just a black screen. I can't even lie. There was one shot, however, it was pitch black down in the crawl space. I think Simon had just like reset the generator, and he turned the life jacket light towards his face. So it was pitch black. He turned the life jacket light towards his face, and then we could see his face and his emotions. I liked that scene, like having it pitch black and then the reveal with the light. I thought that was good. I can excuse that scene being pitch black, but everything else that was like too dark, I would have liked to have seen what was going on. That's all. Also, some of the dialogue was unintelligible coming out of the speaker, and I understand some of it was by design. It was meant to sound garbled and unintelligible, but sometimes even when it was clear, I couldn't necessarily make out what was being said. I could use context clues based on how Mark responded, but I did struggle to hear it. But also, I can't, like, when I'm at home, I can't watch anything without subtitles. Not that I'm deaf, but it does help me follow the story. So I was kind of like missing those when I was watching. I was like, what the fuck is being said? So, is Iron Lung good? I think so. I think it's great. For me, it's somewhere between a 7 to 8 out of 10. I think if you like horror, more on the side of like psychological horror or eldritch horror as opposed to like classic slasher horrors, if you like those, I think you should definitely give it a watch. And of course, if you like Markiplier, like, come on. You can tell, like, watching the film, how much of himself he put into it. His heart, his soul, like, everything. You can tell that he put so much love and passion into this film. However, you know, Iron Lung isn't a perfect film. So very few films are. But for what it is, and let's be honest, an independently developed, directed, produced, funded, and advertised film, it absolutely fucking destroys all expectations. It's so unbelievably worth checking out. Hey guys, it's Editor May here. It's 7 in the morning. I'm just finishing editing the video, and I forgot to record an outro, so here I am now. Definitely go watch Iron Lung.